Good evening, everybody, or everyone. I called the Development Review Board meeting the September the 16th, 2013 to order. Firstly, let me welcome, we have a new member tonight. Becca has joined the best board in town. Welcome. I think we're almost up to a full complement now. We may be short one person, but we're getting there. We really are getting there. One more volunteer required. So welcome, Becca. Thank you for volunteering your services. We have minutes for our meeting of August the 19th to review and approve. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of August 19th.
So moved.
Moved by James and seconded.
Second.
By Mr. Goodwin. Any changes, observations, errors, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 1. 601. Sorry. Okay, so at the DRB we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we're on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event that our decision is appealed to the Environmental Court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearings, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. As we're on the record, we're also going to ask that you affirm that your testimony be truthful. So would the applicants and anyone wishing to speak to an application please stand and affirm the following? If you're not giving testimony, then you don't have to, but I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. I do. Thank you very much. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That is 4 votes out of 7. Tonight we have 7 members here, so it's a full board. If we hadn't had a full board, then we would have given you the opportunity to continue your application to another time, but that is not going to apply tonight. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application tonight, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. And then finally, it should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town, which actually has an application before us tonight, does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town departments will be considered by the board in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or other interested parties. So that sets the basis for our hearings tonight. I now ask the clerk, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Do we have any disclosure of conflicts of interest or ex parte communication for the hearings tonight from any member of the board? None? That's great. Becca, you will be appointed, as you're the 7th member with us tonight, you'll be appointed to hear all applications. Thank you. So with that said, I call application 2013-154, the town of Brattleboro. Please come forward and tell us about the application. You come up to this table here.
I feel kind of funny asking for this application when the job is all completed, but I don't know exactly what you're looking for. What we did at the pump station, we didn't change the footprint, we didn't change the building, we straightened up the fence, put new pumps in, new equipment, maybe change the location of the electric service, gas service, that kind of thing, from one corner of the building to the other. But basically, if you drove by there, you would never know we did anything except mow the lawn. So I'm not exactly sure what we need to do.
I think it might be a technicality on some levels as to why you're before us, so that we can just review the site plan and go over the permits and grant you flood hazard approval, because that structure is in the flood plain. So I take it from what you just said that the work is, for the most part, if not entirely, completed and has been signed off and it's running successfully, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And we have certificates of elevation from Holtana that show that you...
Yes. The surveying was completed by DiBernardo Associates.
Okay. And the structure or the structures have floodgates or has been flood-proofed to at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation.
That's correct.
I just have, I don't think it has any real bearing on the application, but I have some interest in terms of what this pump station actually does. It takes sewage from...
The north end of town, everything above the West River Bridge goes to that pump station, and from there it's pumped across the river, across the bridge, over to where the substation is, the electrical,
Yep.
to there, and it goes gravity from there.
And from there to runs down to the...
Yep.
And again, curiously, I see, not curiously, but just a question of education, is that it appears to have a, I think if I read the plan correctly, a 15-inch sewer line or sewer running into it, and then you have what you call, is it a high-pressure line that pumps out?
Force main, they call it.
A force main.
Yep.
That's half the size.
Yep.
So you managed... Sorry?
It's pumped.
And that's because it's going faster.
Well, it has pumped.
It's
not
pumped.
just gravity.
Okay. So it sort of seems like twice as much could go in and half as much as could come out. But if you know what I mean.
When you pump it, it's more...
It doesn't matter.
It's more condensed, if you will, or whatever.
Yeah.
You can pump a full pipe where gravity it probably runs half a pipe or less.
So when you say the north end of town, you say everything north of that bridge, which is the entire Putney Road and the North End districts and
Black Mountain Road.
Black Mountain Road is all eventually, by gravity, arriving at that pump station.
Yep.
Interesting. Thank you. I have no further questions myself. Anybody else on the board have any questions for... Any member of the public wish to speak to this application? Wastewater is a big deal in this town. In which case, I'm looking for a motion to approve application 2013-154.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Moved by James, seconded by Michael. Any further comment? All those in favour?
Aye. Aye.
6. Thank you very much. 6.
Thank you.
0, 1.
There you go.
Excellent. Do we have application? I call application 2013-158. Sylvia Blanchard. please come up and tell us about your project, Sylvia.
About 2 months ago, I bought the house on 72 Grove Street, and it has been zoned as commercial with 5 offices and 1 apartment. And the people that were using the offices previously were mainly therapists and massage therapists, psychotherapists and massage therapists. And I think that arrangement went on for at least 20 years or so. And my interest is to convert it to 2 apartments and 3 offices. And so my sense is that it actually will be more in alignment with the zoning in that area, because there'll be less traffic as a result. So that's one aspect of it. And the other is it has 2 parking spaces, and I wanted to widen the space. I wanted to create a retaining wall for 2 purposes. One is just for gardening reasons, to keep the soil from running down the street. And the other was to create a wall where I could widen the parking area. So there's 2 aspects of the application. There's the conversion from 5 offices and 1 apartment to 2 apartments and 3 offices. And what it does is it diminishes the commercial area to 32%. And it really doesn't require a lot of change within the building. The only thing it requires is the opening of 1 doorway that used to be there previously. So there's not a lot of reconfiguring in the house, and there's a small amount on the outside with the retaining wall. And that's pretty much the extent of it. And if you look, I tried to illustrate that with a diagram. On the first floor, what you can see is the first floor was entirely used for office space. It already had a kitchen, and what I'm talking about is converting the bulk of the first floor into a 1-bedroom office, 1-bedroom apartment, and leaving the front room as an office space, and the bathroom, so that there's a bathroom that goes with the office. And then on the second floor, what you can see is there was an apartment, there still is an apartment, and there were 3 offices on the second floor, and I wanted to convert that apartment to a 2-bedroom instead of a 1-bedroom. So it leaves the 2 rooms in the front as offices, and it adds one of the offices as a bedroom space.
Okay. So, I think we might look at this in 2 parts.
Okay.
The first is this is a residential area, correct, Brian?
Yes, it is.
So offices would not normally or generally be permitted, but they've been there for 20 years, so
I think longer than.
or longer than 20 years. So probably older than the zoning code, possibly. I don't know. So you're by increasing residential use and decreasing commercial space, you are improving conformity.
Yeah.
You're getting closer to the intent of the district. So that, I think, the board would be very pleased about. How you do it inside your structure is up to you, in terms of the layout. We would not normally be that concerned about which office you decide to remove and how you wish to modify the residential space. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, can you just tell me about the parking element of it again?
There is right now a two-car area. It's 17 feet wide, and there is a telephone pole in the front of the house. So basically, I'm just talking about widening the parking area to the telephone pole.
And what this little map here or plan that we have shows existing parking is 17 feet,
Yeah,
and that would be adequate for 2 vehicles.
it is plenty adequate.
And you would like to
Increase it to 23 feet.
so a further 6 feet, and that would be 6 feet what, to the west? I assume
To the
from
west.
away from your property line.
To the west, yeah. So I was trying to say, there's 2 parts to that. One is the retaining wall, which I'd like just for the gardening. And then there's the retaining wall for the parking. So there's sort of 2 aspects of putting a retaining wall there.
Well, you could have the retaining wall even if you had only 2 spaces as you do.
Yeah, I assume you have to request a permit to put up a retaining wall. That's correct, right? Or
No.
no? I can just go ahead and create. I thought in Brattleboro you had to get a permit for just about everything. So.
That's a misunderstood myth.
Oh, okay.
There are some things you can do without a permit.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
I guess if we look at the current regulations, and I'm going to be corrected any second now, is that parking in the front yard setback, and there is, some give and take on this as far as the board is concerned, because in residential areas sometimes it has to be in the front yard setback, is normally only permitted for residential dwellings. And clearly your space is here because of where the house is, how far the house is set back, which is 20 feet from the road, is in the front yard setback. So 2 spaces, 1 for each of your residences, would be permitted and conform. The 3rd space would have to be, if it was for office use, which is, again, not permitted in the district, would have to be, in theory, behind the front yard setback, which I don't think you'll be able to do in these circumstances.
It's not considered normal to have 2 parking spaces for 1 residence? I mean,
Brian's going to correct me now. It's one space per residence, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then 1 extra for every 3 and above.
That's a requirement, yeah.
And if we're less than 3,
It would be.
it would be 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of conformity, it's 2 spaces, I think. And it looks like you have
Can I ask
to.
just one aside in terms of what permits are needed? For instance, with this big storm this week, I noticed a need for drainage along the side of the western side of the house. The one place the slope makes sense is to go towards the road. Do I need to have a permit application to ask if I can put a drainage pipe on that side of my house? Or is that something
Are you proposing connecting into the town stormwater or just running water out to the street?
running water out to the street?
Yeah, that really won't work out because it rises up the street.
Okay.
So, sorry, Brian, say that again?
It creates icing on the street. Public Works isn't into it.
I can understand that. Yeah, the best thing you could possibly do is run water away from your house into a dry well that you could not knowing your site, you could perhaps have dug at that point with, and they put rocks and stuff into it, and then the water will soak into the ground or infiltrate into the ground within your property or on your property and not run out to the public sidewalk.
Okay.
The department also has pamphlets on doing low impact stormwater management design. It has things like rain gardens, so that might be an approach you can use as well.
Great.
Does any other members of the board have questions for the applicant? Any member of the board have a feeling about additional parking on this site?
How do you access the parking?
Right off the street. I mean, it's
And you got a, what kind of a curb cut have you got there?
there is a curb from the 17 feet over to the telephone pole. There's no curb in where the parking area is now. I think that's right.
So to gain access to the parking, you have to ride the curb?
No, not now.
Not now.
Yeah.
So in the existing, there's a lowered curb cut or curb
Yeah.
where you have the
It's
existing
easy.
parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to back out into traffic.
Tim,
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask a zoning question. Is there any limit to though parking is permitted in the front yard setback in a residential area, presumably limited to some sort of a parking lot rather than a front lawn, but is there anything that talks about how many spaces? Can a residence have a driveway that would accommodate 4 cars, 5, 6?
At some point, you'd start getting into the coverage limits, and there's also regulations on the width of curb cuts. And there's also
Is the width of the curb cut affected in this case?
Well, it would be made wider.
It would be, but enough to create a violation?
I don't think it's hard and fast like that. There's a preference for narrower openings.
Because I think just up the same street, the house on the northwest corner, it's the one of the houses owned by Tim O'Connor, where in fact Jan Anderson's living, has a driveway that pretty easily accommodates 3 cars. And sometimes there are 3 cars in there. So it's not on that block. It's not either unprecedented or out of character, because every house there's hardly a house on that street that has more than a 15-foot setback, and they all park near the sidewalk, all the driveways. When you walk up and down there, you see them all. So it isn't out of character.
Spoon, can I rephrase your question? If I was to rephrase what I think your question was that we have a minimum requirement
Of 2.
of 2 based on, and then one additional space per additional apartment.
That's right.
Once we go above 3. But there is no maximum. You're asking if there's a maximum. So if a property had 3,
Yeah.
that's okay. If it had 5, it's okay.
So to add
Do we set a
third-
maximum? We
Yeah.
don't set a maximum.
So the situation we're looking at is, does a third increase a nonconformity? But it's not actually a nonconformity to have 3 spaces.
The coverage requirement is if it's asphalt. Is that correct?
If it's impervious.
Right.
That's
So
not
if it's
asphalt,
gravel,
is
it's-
it?
Gravel's impervious.
That's gravel,
Yeah.
and it would stay gravel.
Well, If I was required to do asphalt, I'd do asphalt. I mean,
Well, no, I don't
don't like
think that's a requirement.
Are we getting close to the coverage requirement in this district? What is the coverage?
55%.
I will can keep my streak of ranting about the town of Brattleboro zoning ordinance alive and say, our zoning ordinance was drafted at a time when we thought parking was great and more parking was even better. So as Boone pointed out, we have a zoning ordinance that has no limit to effectively to the amount of parking that you can put on a property unless you get to the coverage requirements for the district. And it is
55%.
almost impossible to get to the coverage requirements in a residential district. I think this is 55%.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I take Boone's point that a third parking space for a residence is permitted under the ordinance.
The only waiver required is we're having it in the front yard setback, given that it's not a two-family home.
Brian, with this amount of office space, isn't there an argument to be made that were she in a district where office was permitted, she would in fact be required to have more parking spaces?
Yes, but if it's a non-conforming use, you can't increase any sign of the non-conformity, so
Right,
you couldn't accommodate it with no parking.
right.
And there are public parking lots and street parking and certain times of the year that's permissible. It's fairly close to the,
There's no street parking, but there is a lot.
not that far away.
A couple hundred feet. The High Grove lot is just right down.
Is there no street parking on Grove Street at all, ever?
Ever.
no. You can be sure you'll get a ticket.
I can understand why.
No, there's on the bottom,
On the bottom?
on the very bottom.
Oh.
Where it's marked for spaces.
By the church.
Yeah.
But in the section that where your property is, there's no street parking.
It happens daily, yeah.
And not that it may necessarily matter, but the third space would be for residential use.
I'm finding that tenants usually have 2 cars. Yeah.
Okay. We don't actually need to waiver it, do we? No. It's
Yeah,
just
you do have to waiver it.
because.
It's not a two-family home and you're not allowed to have parking in the front yard setback. So if you're increasing it, you're increasing a non-conformance.
It's a 2-apartment home now.
It's a commercial.
two-apartment home with 3 offices.
So at what point Brian, to pick at it, at what point does it become a 2-family home? When all the offices go away? When it's solely residential and completely conforms?
When it's residential and any office space is just accessory to those.
Accessory to the dwelling.
A home
Yeah.
business.
Home business. Okay.
But in the past, fairly recently, the board has granted waivers for parking in the front yard setback and required that the applicants use
Impervious.
grass parking.
Yeah, grass pavers.
Did residents use what?
They used a reinforced grass parking system.
It's a sort of pervious paver
Right.
that the
Like the co-op has.
maybe, I don't know,
Yeah.
that allows the it's not, we're not talking about blacktop, we're talking about a paver or a paver system that water will pass through. Yeah.
And grass comes up through.
Apart from the telephone pole issue, what's the argument against the waiver? I mean, why do we want to keep the parking out of the front yard setback?
I think it's mostly to maintain a residential feel to the district. Maintains landscaping in the front yard instead of turning neighborhoods into asphalt.
Any further questions from members of the board?
Would you be willing to put in some kind of pervious paving thing so that it would
Yeah.
look as though it remained yard?
It'll look a lot more residential when I'm done. There's no real garden or much landscaping or And that's what I'd like to do.
So you're proposing that you'll be able to put some form of a retaining wall in there, or you're suggesting you put a retaining wall in there to...
Keep the soil and have plants that cascade over the side of it.
Okay, and that the additional 5 or 6 feet of parking space that would be created in the front yard would be, or even all the parking spaces would be of a pervious nature?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
I like that better than asphalt.
I expect we would too.
Further questions from members of the board? Okay, with those, with the suggestions that have just been made in mind, I'm looking for a motion to approve application 2013-158.
So motion.
Second. Moved by Spoon, seconded by James.
Did you ask for public?
Oh, any member of the... I did not, thank you. Any member of the public wish to speak to this application? There being no members of the public, I'll let that motion stand. Wishing to speak, let that motion stand. You're good at it. Very good. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck, and I'm sure it's going to look great. Okay, I call application 2013-160, NPR. Must be you guys. Please tell us about your project.
So we're proposing to turn our 6-bay garage that's been under a triple net lease for 20 years into a retail space, being that we've had it on the market now for about 6 months and nobody was looking at it other than retail customers. So, and in the project, we're because that whole opening in front we're going to expand parking in there because it's always been a tight fit in that whole area as far as parking goes. There's 6 permitted spaces in front of it right now, basically in front of each garage door, so it'd be about an additional 8 spaces.
Okay.
Only paving, like I think we have, there's the very back of the building that doesn't have garage doors currently. That would be the only extra pavement that's going on the parking lot itself. I think it's about 20 feet. 20 by 15 maybe.
The site plan that you gave us, which we have a copy of,
yes,
is that what it's supposed to be now?
Well, no, it's
what you're going to do.
There's a
phase 2 in it.
There's a phase 2 that's not being done. That's in the back.
Hasn't been done.
That's not. We're not intending to do that.
And that phase 2 is what, a 3,500 square foot building that would go on the back, and I don't know, a dozen parking spaces or so.
That's not.
Doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. No.
And then the parking, you've got, while we're talking about parking, you have 14 spaces or so running along the front of the building?
That's what we're proposing. There's 6 permitted right now in front of each. There's just basically a parking space in front of each garage door.
Okay, and then
they're wide spaces.
And on the Putney Road side, there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, another 8 or so spaces?
Yeah.
So it takes it up to 22. And then what about just tell me about...
And then on the north portion of that property line, there's also spaces that are on that property.
So you end up with 32. Do you need that many? I mean,
pretty much. We have we also own the property next to it, the Bond Enterprises property, and we've always used when H&R Block came along, and they're basically 1 for 1. So for about 3 months, we're really crammed for parking in that whole parking lot.
Tax time usually creates overflow.
So we've always had them park in that parking lot as far as employees and stuff, so that customer spaces stay in the prime spots.
So what is the building? What's the next building up from you?
Sheer Design, the small one.
Well, there's the one that's on closest to those parking spaces.
Yeah, that's the Sheer Design.
There's Sheer Design, yeah. The little cedar house, kind in the middle of the parking lot.
And it's that business that uses the extra spaces, or it's H&R Block, which is further removed yet once more?
It's the one next door to that. It's the larger structure. We've always, when we've gotten permits in the past, we've had both the contiguous properties brought into the factor of permitting for parking spaces, because parking spaces have been a consideration when we've gotten permits in the past. Certainly was when we had H&R Block go in there.
Are they still there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been there about 18 years.
Converting the garages or the muffler, which is what we're looking at today.
Yeah.
What's the business requirement, specific business requirement there? Just the 14 that you put out
Well,
front?
we're not sure because...
You're not sure?
No, the front space is the only one that we're working on a letter of intent for now, and that'll just be a retail space for a communications company. So, yeah, I don't know what their requirements would be. I'd say, probably 6 or 8 or something like that. That's not a prolonged parking need. I think it's just people come in and get their service and leave within, a short period of time.
Brian, what's the requirement for this retail space? Is it a square footage requirement?
It comes to 18 spaces for that building.
What do we have now?
I think there's 20. Is there 24 on it right now? I think there was 24 on there.
22.
22?
Well, if we don't count what's across the... I don't know whether it's across the street.
No, is that including the 6 spaces in front of the garage doors that were permitted?
You're counting all the spaces in front of the Monroe building and then the ones on the front on the Putney Road side.
When I looked on the site plan that I got from you guys for the original MPR, I believe there were 24 spaces, because we only added 8 when we were looking to basically utilize, because we're going to be putting sidewalk in front of the whole building. So we're adding.
So you had 6 in front and the other 18. So it was 24. That's what you're saying.
It was 24, yeah.
And now you're going to 32.
Yes.
Or you're hoping to go to 32.
Hoping to go, yes.
Okay. And this entire, by my recollection, this entire lot is blacktop, right? It's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall seeing these plantings and trees and shrubs and as shown on this plan.
There's some stuff on there that's written on the state right of way, in the front, that was never brought in. There was like a couple of curbs in there and plantings. I don't know if there were plantings drawn on them or not. And then in the middle, I'm not sure when that was. They were on a triple net lease for 20 years, so we basically plowed their parking lot. So I'm not sure what. I know there was a problem with trees dying in the round concrete cauldrons. They wouldn't stay alive. But we're certainly willing to plant, to put plantings in there. I'd like to. My vision was to put like a couple of significant plantings in spots that that hopefully can weather better than the ones that were there before, and put them in more kind of spots that work, because being in the middle of the parking lot just doesn't seem. I saw the Black Mountain Square finally took out their middle plantings, because it makes for a difficult growing situation.
One of the difficulties I have here is that you showed us a plan here that I think is historic and probably should be what's there now, and you're proposing just changing the parking in front, and you've shown us some elevations of how it might look. But I don't get I can't judge from this what the site plan will actually be. I mean, you're saying you would like to put some plantings in, but you're not actually proposing putting in what you're showing on this site plan. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. My apologies. We did rush this permit through, as you know, on the final day. I would like to get something drawn up that we can both agree on, that'll make it a more functional, because basically the plantings that are in front that exists now, those few shrubs that are in front of the building, it really makes that not a very workable entrance. You know, you can't really get
one island that sets off what was originally an access road that belongs to the state. There is a divider there now that really doesn't function very well. It's kind of in an awkward place. So we'd actually like to eliminate that and put plantings possibly on the end of the building where, you know, so there'd be sort of a planter built on the west side of the building, or on the road side, the Putney Road side.
So on this face here?
On that face there, that's the one that probably could use the plantings, and it would be a more practical place.
So might you be suggesting in a way that you'd like some time to develop the site plan and come back to us at the next meeting and say, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to get rid of this curb. This is where we want to get rid of this site as shown, or we want to reorganize or replan the site as shown on here, and this will be our proposal, and the parking is going to be here, and
well, possibly, and we'd also like some feedback.
Sure. So if we treated this, if we continued your application to the next meeting and treated this as a method of kind of reviewing the concept with you.
Would it be possible at all, we're in a kind of a situation where we need to get building. Is there any way that we can make this basically the certificate of occupancy for the commercial property contingent upon us completing a site plan, but also starting building if we had to earlier than that?
Yeah, we could make the CO contingent on a landscape plan of some sort. We have a tenant, but the tenant wants to have occupancy by January 1st, and if we don't start for another month, we probably won't be able to do the project and get the tenant. That's our quandary. And but if we were to extend it, with a partial permit to start the work and hold it contingent on our doing plantings, we're more than willing to do what is effectively your wish to do, to make it look right.
I have to agree, Tim. I can't make head and tail out of what they want to do from this.
But we want to take that existing building and turn it into 3 retail spaces. We're essentially putting one wall inside the building to break it up into those spaces.
Sure. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. The construction will be limited to the building and its interior.
Right. We're not extending the size of the
What about the exterior of the building?
Well, I guess the exterior of the building as shown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then have a subsequent meeting in which we separately review and approve a landscaping plan.
Or site plan.
Yeah, site plan.
But it's
general site plan.
Yeah.
With the applicant understanding that the certificate of occupancy will require both the approval we'd give tonight and the subsequent site plan.
This area, which is referred to here as commercial space 3,500.
That's not been built.
Yeah,
there.
That's a phase that was proposed a long time ago. We're not applying for that.
So you're just talking about this sort of slightly elevated
Yes.
building here.
Right.
Were you expecting to have a standing sign near the road?
There's one that was permitted in the past. So yes, we are, because the way it's going to be configured, there's going to be businesses kind of tucked in the back, so having a freestanding sign.
Did you think that would be changed in size?
What is I don't think it'll be above the 64 or the 8x8.
Yeah,
we're going to stay under the 8x8.
Conform with what you.
And you're, I assume, aware of that the state has plans to redo Putney Road, how that will impact.
Yeah, they actually eliminate that island in their plan, so that's one of the.
Yeah, we end up with a roundabout almost in front.
And is there a sidewalk that you'll be responsible for?
No, it's the sidewalk. I believe is on the roadside. I wish I had the plan up here. I
We
wish
have
I
a
had the
copy here.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Right, it's that.
Yeah, the rotary is the roundabout is a little further down.
Yeah,
but you and you have your own separate entrance. But I think in principle you're improving the structures on the site and making it less industrial and more suitable as a retail space.
Exactly.
Well, what we would really want to look for at this point in this opportunity is to clean the site up and get a clean, maintainable site plan that addresses some of the issues that you've raised and that the board has some concerns about, and then deal with. I don't know whether I can't recall whether you dealt with lighting or signage over any of these offices or what you want to do on the end of the building. I don't think that the board would easily take a pen to this print here and try and decide for you what we want.
Yep.
It would be much more preferable for you to have this drawn up as a actual site plan that works for access and works for parking and works for landscaping
And drainage.
and drainage. Yeah. There's a comment.
Drainage is fine in there.
The drainage is all in place. The drainage is pretty extensive.
There's a comment in some notes that we got from the department that, and a picture of a stormwater drain that doesn't appear to be functioning in the way that the stormwater drain should function.
There's one on the property. I know that the town has to come in and clean out often because of the apartments out back. That thing gets plugged up every once in a while.
Is that a town stormwater drain or is that that's on your site?
They access it through the stormwater drain. I don't know. That's what it bubbles up through when the septic backs up there.
There's an easement for a septic line that comes down through there
from the apartment complex around back.
And that sometimes backs up.
What about the one that's just it's right near the entrance?
That one works great. Even in Irene, that thing was a bit of a whirlpool, but it was working well.
They're showing us a picture of a drain that's in front of that Monroe building between there and the sheer design. There's standing water all around it.
I think
like the pavement has sunk and the drain is up above the pavement. We have a picture of it.
Let me see it, because it might have been before I had...
You have a picture as well?
Yeah. Jimmy's got one.
Yeah, I know where.
That's the one in the entrance here.
Yeah.
The one, and it would appear that drains out and to the.
We are getting pavement work done on this whole thing. We're shimming pavement, so if that's a concern, we can certainly work.
Well, certainly we would expect that the storm, if you're top coating or dressing or shimming the pavement, we would expect that stormwater flows away and disappears into the storm drains, and the storm drains function and get rid of it.
It looks like it's gotten depressed around the drainage.
Something's moved or sunk or happened. And
Yeah, well, that's part of our plan, is to improve the paving on the whole property. That's what we're going to the bank. We're going to the bank to, as that, including all of the paving and on both properties. So we would like to, we want to make the whole property functional again. And we don't need another garage on the street. A lot of the service is done now at the dealerships, and there are plenty of there's pizzas going in across the river. I think eventually, I know they have a building there, so we're assuming that makes our property all the less desirable, and it's time to change that use, unless we want to just leave it sitting there and pay taxes on it, which we don't really want to do.
So let's just talk about the curb cuts and the access briefly. If we, and I'm not saying that this plan is set in stone by the state, but certainly they're showing access going in a different point to that which you have on the site right now. It's a little.
Is that one being closed off, or is that in addition to?
Well, no, they're just showing it going sort of like directly into the end of the building where these parking spaces are, as if it came through there. Now, that may of course not be the case, because I think on some levels this is a conceptual drawing.
Yeah.
So I would certainly suggest that you need to inquire of the state at this point in time whether their plans for where that curb cut comes are any firmer before we can review their site plan. There was an application a while ago which is now occupied by Sunel, that building when that was built. That had to be recited once the state reviewed the site plan. It had to be
I was
pushed.
hoping to speak with them this month. That was when I came to the meeting a few months back. They said in September they'd be speaking to property owners, but I didn't.
Okay. Certainly the Sunel building, we were in the process of approving a certain design, and then the state came in and said, no, well, the Rotary's going in front of it, so you've got to move back here, and we have so much of this, we need to move, and that caused that building to relocate entirely. Now, I know you're not moving the building, but if the curb cut is coming through where you're proposing parking, or there's existing parking, then that changes the site plan. And it may be, as I say, just concept, and it's on this print, or on this picture, it's in the wrong place. But it would require confirmation at this point.
Even if we said we don't necessarily want more parking, we want to just conform with our previous permit and just change the use. I mean, we're really not changing the traffic flow in that space as any differently than it is now. We just want to change the use of the property.
The issue is that well, not the issue, but we review site plan when you do that, so we're going to look at the whole thing. So if it was another muffler store going in there, I doubt that you'd even be here, but you're converting it from automotive to retail. You're modifying the building. You're proposing changing the parking out front. I mean, all of it, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But we certainly need a site plan that we can judge and discuss with you and have work.
So a motion to approve the application, the elements of the application relating to the
structure,
the alterations to the facade, the change of use, but with the condition that before a certificate of occupancy can issue from the zoning administrator's office, the applicant submit and get approval for a site plan including landscaping and other elements.
Second.
So we're going to close this application and have them come back and redo site plan? Or do we continue this? We can't have it half open and half closed.
No, I think we should close the application.
Yeah.
But the condition is that the applicant come back for a subsequent hearing. You don't want to continue the hearing, because then there's no finality to the decision.
Correct.
And so, but a condition to the site plan.
Yep.
The condition is that we approve the site plan, and then we should warn that site plan meeting as if it were a new
hearing
application and hearing with notice to abutters and the rest.
Did you?
Yeah.
So we're going to deal with your building so you can proceed with structure work, but a condition of the application is that you come back with a revised site plan.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I think it's been moved and seconded.
Moved and seconded?
I seconded it.
Okay. Any further comment? All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? I abstain. 601. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes.